I'm going to open the meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It is January 10th. It is 6 o'clock. And do I have a request for a waiver of the reading?
So moved.
Guidelines? Do I have a second?
Second?
Whiteman second. Oh wait, I was gonna say Whiteman second.
You can.
All right, roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whiteman aye.
And Nichols' eye. Okay.
You
So
want a
I'll start with the
motion to
pledge.
approve?
No, I want to pledge allegiance to the flag.
Okay, we can do that.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Go jumping ahead.
See if we can make it a short meeting.
All right, minutes from December 27th.
Motion to approve December 27th meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or corrections? Roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whiteman aye.
And Nichols' eye. Thank you. All right. Next is the
Can,
approval of the warrant 22W14 and payroll 22WP14.
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Whiteman seconds.
I'm gonna let her do it.
All right, and we'll do a roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whiteman aye.
And Nichols' eye, excluding any COA wages. All right, department head reports. I guess we're gonna wait and hopefully Seth and Scott will get in here. They're currently working the clinic. So we will go to the town administrator update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope people can hear me with the mask on, but we need to be safe. As you all know, this is budget time, and we've been working on the budgets. I've completed my review of the budgets with each of the department heads, but there's a lot of information that's still outstanding. Obviously, the state revenue numbers are not in yet, so we don't have cherry streets. We're not sure what the insurance costs are going to be. We haven't seen the school budget or Bay Pass budget. So there's a lot of information is still outstanding, but I'm in contact with the town accountant. We've been talking about various things, and I feel good that we're in a better position this year than we have been in the past. And I feel good about my timing and getting things done, but again, we have to wait for a bunch of state numbers information. In January, usually at the MMA meeting in a couple of weeks, we'll find out what the insurance numbers are going to be in terms of our health insurance, which is always a significant number. I talked to Bay Path and had conversation with their financial officer, and hoping in a couple of weeks to have Bay Path numbers as well. And as you know, we already scheduled the meeting, the budget meeting with the school committee. That's already scheduled, so that's going forward. You also may be aware, I know the chairman's aware, and the chairman of the finance committee is aware, that they've sent out a notice to all board and commission members that if they want to have Zoom meetings, they're welcome to do so. Obviously, I wouldn't do that unless the numbers were spiking, but up until recently, we had over 200 cases, which is a high number for us. And I want to make it clear that while we've had a lot of cases, the cases have not been as dangerous, let's say, as they have been in the past, in terms of most of the people that are getting sick are getting basically cold symptoms, and if they've had the vaccination, they're getting over it relatively quickly. If they haven't had vaccination, it's taken longer, but it's not quite as bad in terms of the hospitalizations as what we've had in the past. But I wanted board and commission members, knowing there's a lot of fear out there again with the numbers going up, that they could do Zoom meetings and make sure they post them properly and set up in such a way that the public can gather the meetings through Zoom. You might have seen recently an email from Tamika that the tower company, you know, there was some conversation about getting an easement for the tower to be able to go across town land. That is no longer under consideration. The tower company is going to go back to their old plan, and I see that the hearing is postponed for some time for them to redo their plan. So they're no longer looking for easements from the town. That was after some significant discussions between myself and representatives of that group. We're still in the middle of police negotiations. We're in the second round of giving out proposals. That's early yet, not a lot to report there, but it is continuing and ongoing. We had our first Economic Development Commission meeting. 3 members were attending in the room, 2 members tried to get on Zoom, and we obviously had some Zoom problems, so they couldn't go on, so we're gonna reschedule another meeting soon. But it was positive among the members that were there. I talked to the members actually before the meeting, they said they were gonna be on, but for some reason, the Zoom didn't work. So we did start. I figure we'll have another meeting within 2 weeks to kind of finish our organization and get up and running. But there does seem to be a lot of excitement among members who seem very interested in the particular issue. So I'm confident that while it's going to take a little bit of time, I think it will be a good thing once it's up and running. DPW has been working, and we're already getting bids for the 3 heaters. As you know, in the special town meeting, we approved the heaters for the library. That's already underway. We also wanted to get underway the roofing project at the community center, and we're gathering all the background information in order to have an engineering company do the review and get that ready for bid. Our goal, obviously, for both of these projects to get them done sometime in the spring and not wait and take a long time to get them done. So we feel good about it. We wanted to get that kind of early start and move out. Been working with Peter Crane with the public access station. As you remember, again, another special town meeting item was to purchase equipment for the cable access. All that equipment is in. I just asked Peter a few minutes ago. It's scheduled to be installed on Friday, so that's moving forward in a quick manner as well, and we'll have new equipment that will make it better for this, for the public access. A normal part of our process, just to make the Board of Selectmen or Select Board aware of it, is we routinely have a company come in and do blood and alcohol tests on our DPW workers because they have CDL license and they're required not to use any kind of illegal substances for their licenses. This week there were inspectors in and they tested a number of employees. We're waiting for those results. It's sort of a normal course of business, but I wanted you to know that we're doing those ongoing testing to make sure that our drivers are all safe. Particularly this time of year when they're out in big trucks in the middle of snowstorms, we want to make sure that everybody is safe. As you know, with the snowstorm, DPW was out pretty regularly. I had a lot of conversation with Joe. They feel really good about it. I think I told you they were using a new substance in the past called brine. So far, Joe's very pleased with that. By using brine, it reduces the cost of salt, of using salt, so that's been a savings. Joe didn't know how it was going to go. I actually went over to DPW to tour DPW, and they actually make the brine right in-house. So they have all the equipment in-house. The DPW guys themselves built this equipment, and you know, it's literally metal fabrication and everything else. And they're very, very happy with the way that's going so far. DPW, the workers in particular, deserve a lot of kudos for doing something on their own. You would probably have to hire a contractor to build this equipment. So that's worked out well. And kudos to Joe Buckley for moving forward with that project. I sent out today, we're going to be talking in a little while about a pavement management plan. And I sent out a letter to the Capital Improvement Committee, and I copied the 2 chairs of the Select Board and the Finance Committee. Because now the Capital Improvement Committee, I think, is in really a good place to really plan for the future in terms of capital improvements. As you know, when I first came, I developed a 5-year capital plan, a book that I gave out to all the members. You guys have received that book, and that really didn't kind of exist. I know they had some plans on somebody's computer, but that was a nice big step in getting us ready for purchasing capital items. The second component of capital projects is the facilities management plan. So now we had a 10-year look at all the town buildings, and I sent you guys all copies of that 10-year management plan. And that basically looks at every town building and says what the needs are for that building. And that really came in handy during the last special town meeting, because we used that facilities management plan to develop the purchasing or the plan to do a variety of capital improvement projects. So that was a really good thing. Tonight is the third component that the Capital Improvement Committee can use, and that's what's called a pavement management plan. And you'll hear a lot about that tonight, but essentially what that is a review of every road in town for the quality of the road and what the needs of the roads are going to be. So one of the things that I talked with the Capital Improvement Committee is we need to look at the larger items. So we use free cash to purchase smaller capital items, but for larger items, we really need to develop a bond package. And the Capital Improvement Committee has now all the information that they need to develop a bond package for the future and to be able to present the plan to take care of some of our bigger needs, what those may be. They've clearly been identified now. They know estimates on costs. It's a matter of just putting together that plan. Now, why that's important, and I stress that to the Finance Committee Chair as well as Hera, is that we're starting to see some debt service falling off. And this is the time where you want to have a bond package, so you don't want to have debt for service fall off, lower taxes, and have a big increase when you borrow the new thing. You kind of want to level out that debt service. So that's something the Capital Improvement needs to work with the Finance Committee, and we need to talk about how to level off that long-term capital spending and see what major projects need to be done. I'll give you an example of one of them, and this is something I try to get state funds for, is all the parking lots in town. Be it the one here, the town hall, the fire department, all the parking lots are in just horrible condition. That's a large, big project, as well as the school parking lots are horrible as well. That's the type of project you would look for a bond, because it's so large, you would do that one big project. That's something, I applied through the state senator, state rep asked me to bring in projects. It didn't get funded. We're going to keep trying to look for other funds, but it is something that makes sense for a long-term capital bond. You just can't let our infrastructure keep deteriorating. We have to invest in that for the future of the town. So that's my report this evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions, but that's some of the things, the highlight of some of the bigger things I'm working on. There's regular day-to-day stuff, but that's the gist of the big things.
All right, and I know you mentioned that the COVID cases, but we still have the mask mandate that all buildings are open.
Yep. Yeah, just we want to be clear about that, because we're having day-to-day conversations about that. So we did require, once again, that anyone entering a town building be required to wear a mask, where we had dropped that when things calmed down. Everybody that comes in has to wear a mask. Employees are now wearing masks if they move around the buildings. If you're in an individual office, you could take off your mask, but if you're anywhere near anybody else, you have to wear a mask. And frankly, most of the employees have been very good about doing that. So I walk around on a regular basis, kind of check to make sure. Because some people hate these, frankly, including me, hate these masks. But the employees have been good about wearing them themselves. Citizens have been good about wearing them, and we do have masks available. If people want to come to town building and they don't have a mask, we can provide them. So I feel good. We still have all our safety measures up in terms of the screens and everything like that are still up. When we talk about buildings, and I think I had some conversations and some emails with you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on an email set up with all the town managers and town administrators in the area. And there's already numerous towns that are closing their buildings again. Personally, I think it's a little bit premature, because I think this is going to spike. And already we're up to over 200 cases. We dropped to 150 quick now that the holidays are over. I believe it's going to keep going down quickly soon. If I'm proven wrong, we'll look at other options, but that's the way it seems. I've had conversations with our emergency management director about that issue, and I feel that this is kind of just a temporary spike. But I've had conversations with the community center director and asking for her advice is, you let me know when you feel there's any risk out there. She's assured me that she feels that everybody's taking very strong precautions at the community center. And the reason I stress that building is because that's our most vulnerable population. That if I want to protect anybody, that's my first place. If I close anything, that's the first thing I would close. I've talked with the health agent, had a lot of conversations with the health agent, and we feel right now we could keep the buildings open. But, as I said, this is kind of a day-to-day thing. It's a reevaluation. Every single day we talk about this and have discussions. If the numbers do get high, then I have to reconsider. If I keep seeing all the towns closing up and numbers getting high, then we'll have to, follow suit at some point. But I think it's early. Auburn is already closed. Worcester's closed down. There's a bunch of towns going back to severe restrictions. So it's coming, but again, I think another 2 weeks, I think we'll know a lot better where we are. And that's sort of the update. Scott's going to come tonight. He's going to talk. I've asked Scott to give a more specific detailed report, because a number of selectmen have been asking me. And when I kind of get a report from them, a minor report, they got more of the detail they can provide you with that. I do want to say, though, while we have statistics, we don't have, they don't tell me about specific people. Now, why that's important is, Mr. Selectman, or Madam Selectman, you might know an individual, and you might have different information, because we're a small town, and you get stuff from people. That information may be different than the statistical information we get. So, we have to look at it from a kind of a neutral, overlooking everything. where individuals may know something that we really don't know. So I kind of want you to understand that the information could be different among different people.
Any update on the Woodhouse and the insurance?
So the Woodhouse, we're up to, Maya was over there today for the insurance side of the question. So there's two questions. There's a Maya question as to insurance on our building. And one of the issues was, and Carol I know was over there, she may be better at this particular discussion, me and Beth have talked about it, but one of the issues is the floor underneath where our building inspector came through down to the floor, that floor has to be replaced. One is because I guess there's some asbestos there, but also blood and stuff, so that floor is gonna have to be replaced. That'll all be covered through Maya, there might be some kind of deductible, but those costs will all be taken care of through our insurance plan. This Thursday, DLS will be coming out. It's been kind of a ongoing discussion about trying to get them out here, but they are scheduled to come out this Thursday to do the review. Quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I didn't even know that DLS did these kind of reviews. That was kind of new to me. When we found out about it through both Maya and Joe Buckley, we started moving forward to get DLS out here, but they are coming out this Thursday. And hopefully we can move forward. As soon as they do their inspection, we can clean up that site and get that thing back up and operating.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Leah, do you have any questions for Ron or any issues?
I just had one question for the DPW and the brining. I know that there's certain conditions as far as being able to pre-treat the roads with the temperature and everything, and we might not need it tonight, but if we can just have an update as to kind of what the process is for the pre-treating, because I know there's a lot of conversation about the black ice that formed the other morning. And I think that was really tricky because the air temperatures were so warm, but the surface temperatures were so cold. But just so if we know what the process is as far as pre-treating and how effective it is with what conditions, I think that's fine. I think mostly the pre-treating has been great, and it's been a big help in hopefully alleviating some of the time burden on the DPW side as far as being out at the start of the storms.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was driving to work during that, and it was just raining. And I was talking to my sister in Connecticut, and she was telling me how icy the road. This is nothing here, it's just rain. And within a few minutes, that rain turned to sheet ice as I was driving. And it freaked me out because I drive a four-wheeler truck, and all of a sudden my truck was sliding, and it looked perfectly safe. So I immediately called up Joe Buckley and told him, he said, yeah, I know too, it was an immediate freezing that turned the roads to ice. So he was aware of it, and he immediately had trucks and stuff out. So if he knows by the forecast that it's gonna be icy, he sends his team out to do the brine first, and that reduces the potential for ice. It makes it much harder for the water to freeze on the roads, and it makes it much safer. Joe is on, so he can comment about that. But Joe has used that a couple of times that I know of, and that reduces the cost of overall salt because it's cheaper, I guess, to lay it down. And also, one of the big conversations we had when I reviewed DPW is it's also more environmentally friendly than even salt is. So it's a really good tool to use it. And if you don't mind, Joe, if he has any additional comments, our DPW director is on Zoom if you think there's, Joe, if you can add anything to what I said.
Sure. Leah, there's no way we could have pre-treated for that flash ice storm. We need maybe 8 or 10 hours to get the whole town properly treated in advance of a storm. We're working on adding equipment to cut that number down. And we also need dry roads to be able to use brine in advance of a storm. So it's not perfect, but it does help. Most storms we average 1 to 2 treatments of either salt or salt sand mix. And what the brine's been able to do is help us cut that in half on smaller storms. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Ron. I have no problem using it, and I think it's been a big lifesaver for the town as far as like buying time as well as resources on the DPW side. And I thought that it was just kind of bad timing, bad circumstances for the black ice the other day, and being able to get the brine out. It just wasn't a feasible combination of events to make that happen. So I just wanted to hear it from you, so I appreciate it.
I'll say this, Leah, it was very scary how quick that turned from just being wet to icy. That was a matter of like minutes. It was scary.
Anything else, Leah?
To move traffic. They couldn't get here quick enough. It came down that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all set then. Thank you guys. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anybody else on the board have any questions for Ron? Okay, I did skip over public comments, I don't know if I'm sure.
Of course.
I tried, and you're looking right at me, and I still tried to miss you, but.
Well, thank you. So, I'm here, no. With this mask on. Dick Williams, Overlook. Just to let you know that coming up, we were gonna have a meeting in the other room, now it's gonna be Zoom, and this is the Ware River Watershed. And one of the things that I'm gonna be bringing up, that's on the agenda, I've been trying to get somebody to come in to talk to me about it. The difference between DCR Watershed and DCR State Park or, recreation. I'm gonna try to push more for the recreation for this town in the prison camp. Also, I don't know how many times I have asked Dan, the director for Quabbin, and has he got a backup for Wachusett Greenways if something ever happens, in order to keep the trails going? He won't answer. So, it's on the agenda, so I'm just letting you people know that I feel that the recreation probably could do a heck of a lot more for this town than the watershed. They're both still DCR, still watershed, but I feel recreation would help. So just let you know. And my last little comment was, how many times have you met with Holden yet? In a joint committee meeting with all the towns around us for that byway? May I ask, how many times have you met?
Oh, you didn't go to any of them?
Mr. Chairman, can I comment a little bit to the prison camp? Is that okay? So just to let you know, I put Peter in contact with DCR about the prison camp issue because, well, we got $50,000 from the state of Massachusetts to improve that, the prison camp. It's DCR property. So the DCR guy asked me if I would connect them to the Historical Commission for conversations about that, and I did such a thing. Peter Preserve, the chairman of the Historical Commission, has provided a basic plan that they worked out with the Historical Commission for things they want to do to upgrade that.
Yes, I was at that meeting, yeah.
So that plan has now been given to the gentleman at DCR, and they're trying to get him to attend the next meeting for those discussions. So it was kind of a two-way street. DCR wanted to connect with them to have these conversations so they knew what was going on, and it helps to have, Peter and them are happy that that connection has been made. So I think that now DCR has the plan they want to do, and now they can communicate about the timing and what they can do with that plan. So that's moving forward.
But, that's just the prison camp part of it.
Yeah, just the camp part.
We need to look further into more of it. Yes, and I also was asked to put Jeff onto the agenda too, have a discussion about the prison camp, so it's there. So the mentioning of the byway, it's because it takes so long for them to engineer it and everything else, and I don't know, you talk about economic development and everything else in the future, and that's one of the reasons why I feel that state has let us down, because 49 was supposed to come right up through Spencer, continue on. It wasn't supposed to stop in Spencer, it was supposed to go all the way up to New Hampshire. And it was supposed to be at the bottom of the hill down here. And to me, for crying out loud, opportunities after something like that would be built would be phenomenal.
So what towns were you talking about being?
Oakham, Barry, I would say Hubbardston, Gardner, people that use Route 68, coming down, heading for Worcester, Paxton, anybody that would be traveling through this, and I would say it would be approximately 5 or 6 towns that might be, should be involved, because I feel it's all the individuals coming from those various locations that we need to help in the future. I mean, if you...
Do you think you could provide some kind of just an outline of it to Ron, and then we can send something to the town managers and see if there's an interest in trying to meet?
Well, I'll try that too, and if I can, I'll try to get a hold of Otto Lees. He has the old plan that was set, Central Mass Regional Planning, that put it together, and I believe he still has it.
Oh, all
And
right.
that
Yeah, so
ought
if
to
you
be-
can get something that kind of
Yeah.
just gives us an idea of what it is,
Yeah.
and then we can look at and see if we can generate any interest.
It's worth at least a discussion to find out if there's any interest for any of the
Yeah.
towns to move it, so.
You
You can give it to me, I don't mind sitting up and meeting with those towns, I already meet with, Holden and Paxton and myself and Sterling and Princeton, so. Just adding a few more towns for a quick Zoom discussion, to see if there's even an interest in moving forward.
Well, I'm just thinking that in the future, trying to get through some of these places, it's gonna be horrendous. And gotta look ahead, either that and, or, let's get a commuter train coming up, the line, you know?
Well, I know in the past it was difficult, but with the way the traffic has been building and stuff like that, there may be more interest with the town. So, yeah, we can look at trying to generate a meeting and get some interest.
All right, I'll see what I can do for
I
you.
apologize, I know you had brought that up to Ron and I and
Yep.
with quite a few other things.
Just a few.
That's it, thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to see if I can get those two to come in now, or do you have any, just to see if they're
I
available?
thought it was gonna be a while, right? You can,
Let me just see when they're gonna
Yeah,
be available either way.
don't push them, but yeah.
No, but I'll just see if they're, when they're gonna be available.
One at a time would be fine.
Yeah, I don't know if they're that crucial.
Well, we have the
There's a lot of people out there. that-
presentation for the pavement management presentation that could go.
Oh,
Rather
yeah.
than dragging them out.
Yeah, that's true. So,
Just after 7 is what I'm hearing.
We can move on.
yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, they have a long line right now, they're talking about 7:05 is when they're
Okay.
gonna try to come in.
So do you wanna just jump up to the presentation, cause that's probably.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Does anybody object on the board?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could start as you know, through a community compact grant, we applied for funding to have what's called a pavement management study done. Again, this is a large outlook and review of all of our town roads. And it identifies the condition of each road and kind of sets up for how we should go about taking care of those roads individually. This, again, it lays out to me what is a long-term capital plan on how to fix our roads. Obviously, this is the same problem as anything else. All this costs money. And it costs a lot more money than right now we have. So, what it does for Joe Buckley and me, and Joe have had a lot of conversations about this, is it gives Joe priorities based upon actual road conditions, not based on any kind of political situation or who likes what road or who wants what road paved, but based upon the actual study, it evaluates and prioritizes road. Bill Scarpetti from Stantec is here, and Bill is ready to give a review. As you know, I sent you the full pavement management plan. Tonight you're just going to see a smaller kind of oversight, and they're here really to answer any of your questions about how this plan can be used and how this benefits the town.
And is the full plan available online? Do we-
It is not. I can put it online. Obviously, I want you guys to see it first,
Yeah.
and have it first and do this, and then I can put it onto our website. And I would ask Joe Buckley to throw it on the DPW website as well, because that's probably where most people would look for this type of item, would be on that plan.
Thank you.
With that, if it's okay, Joe, did you want to make any comments, or you want me to just turn it over to Bill?
I think I'd rather you start with Bill, and I can field questions on the backside.
All right, thank you. With that, Bill, I see that you're on. Bill has some illness at home with the COVID thing, so he thought it made a lot more sense to be on Zoom. So,
Yeah.
Bill, we appreciate you coming here. We appreciate the work that Stantec has done on this particular project. I've had a chance to look at it. It's very well done and very comparative to other project plans. I say, with that, appreciate if you'd go through your presentation.
Thank you. So I was hoping that I would be able to run the presentation, especially when we get to the map. It's an interactive map. So I'm wondering if I can share my screen, if that's a possibility to share the same presentation.
Sure, hold on, Bill, let me try something real quick.
What I'll do is I'll hit the share screen and maybe you guys could let me in.
Usually it comes up, Bill. I don't see it coming
No,
up.
it's not coming up. And
Hey,
it doesn't give it as a
What if we can't share our screen, Bill? You gotta share your
Can I
screen?
go to more?
No,
$7.
Yeah, wait, how about,
There you go.
Hey, we got it.
You can share.
okay. So you see everything here, dude?
No.
No, not
No,
yet.
we don't see it yet.
Okay.
I don't think that.
We'll try it again. Let me hit share screen. Here we go. Share. There we
Oh,
go.
there, yeah, well, there it is.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Scarpati. I'm a pavement specialist with Stantec, the recent project manager for the pavement management study that we did. And tonight, I've got a really quick agenda that I'm going to go through. I'm going to try not to speak too much. First topic is going to be the pavement management study and methodology. Kind of talk a little bit about the philosophy, the pavement management philosophy, what details in the report. Hopefully you have read the report. And then second, I want to get into this GIS online dashboard. It's actually a tool that DPW used to actually formulate or finalize the 5-year pavement management plan. And then 3 would be her recommendations and findings, and then we'll open it up to questions. So starting last summer, Stantec conducted a townwide pavement assessment. So this consisted of visiting 80.4 miles of roads. We broke the site roads into individual pavement management segments, what we call pavement management segments. They're essentially little projects. So for each of these projects, we've identified the to, the from, the length, the width, and then for each of these segments, we did a detailed distress identification and quantification. So we closely documented in the severity and extent of different distresses, key distresses on the pavement, such as alligator cracking, potholes, transverse longitudinal cracking. And then based on all those cracks, we then calculate what we call a pavement condition index score or rating. It's a PCI on a 0 to 100 scale, 100 being a road in excellent condition, and then 0 being a road that's nearly impassable. And then we calculated what we call a network priority ranking, or an NPR value. So we have a list of all the streets, but how do we sort of tackle and repair these streets? So we looked at the functional class of the road and the average daily traffic. So and also pavement materials as well. Gravel roads versus hot mix asphalt roads. And so if you've got a PCI, 2 streets with the same PCI, the one that's on an arterial collector that's traveled by more people is going to have a higher priority ranking. And so again, all this information was collected, gathered, and put into a pavement management software program to model different what-if funding scenarios, which I'll get into. So before I get into that, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about the pavement management philosophy, and this slide really does it all. So it illustrates the life of a pavement as it relates PCI, that vertical axis, over time. So up at the top, roads are in excellent condition and they require no immediate maintenance. And then roads that fall under routine maintenance treatment ban. These are treatment bans that we're going through here. During the pavement's life. And the routine maintenance ban is where we would do crack sealing or maybe some localized skin patching. Low cost investment. Roads here are in very good condition. And then roads in the middle of their life appear in the preventative maintenance ban. This is where perhaps you've got to do more than a routine maintenance effort, where you're going to do an extensive crack seal, maybe cut and patch an area, and then come back and do some type of surface treatment to restore that pavement surface. So roads here have plenty of service life to preserve and get a bump in the future. Roads that are in poor condition fall in that structural improvement treatment ban. And this is where you need extra paving, thickness, not just to seal the surface, but to provide added strength to resist traffic loading. cost here, and treatments cost a little more. Treatments include like mill and fill, resurfacing, grind and inlay, overlay. And then roads have failed appear at that bottom in the base rehabilitation treatment band. And this is where we do things like full depth reconstruction or reclamation, pulverizing of the old pavement in the underlying gravel and creating a new base to compact and put a new pavement structure on top. So the whole idea is as a road deteriorates, it's going through what we call these pavement treatment bands, but they're intervention phases. And as it drops from band to band, it's going to cost more and more. So the whole idea is to try to spend money early on, make make inexpensive investments to do more streets and get a higher PCI. So let's just take a look at some treatment band examples. Here's a Glenwood Road, PCI 98, do nothing. Here we have East County Road. We can see some longitudinal cracks that have been sealed. There's some new transverse cracks up ahead that are snapping. You know, old pavement's drying. It's like an elastic band, and it's just drying out in the sun. And every so often along the roads, along the length, you will get snapping and crack sealing. Also, the little raveling or pitting surface wear, what we call aggregates coming out and dislodging over time and wearing down. It's the wearing surface, it wears away. This is, you know, it's common, but this is a great candidate to come in and do some sort of, you know, box surface, micro surface treatment. And here's PCI 48, preventative maintenance. You can see the left side of the road is good, right side of the road has got some alligator cracking, some old crack sealing that's really ineffective. Really a drainage issue here. Water sits, it's not able to drain away from the edge of the pavement, and you know, anytime you get ponding and vehicle loads and rubber tire action, pumping that water into the cracks and infiltrating, you're deteriorating that base. So this is an area where you'd come in, saw cut, remove, patch, and then come back with an extensive crack seal, and then maybe some type of surface treatment like a rubber chip seal. And here you've got PCI 27, Pommel Gusset Road, structural improvements. So here you can see the cracking is more pronounced, more severe, deeper. You can see that, you know, like sealing these cracks is really not going to do it. These are underlying issues. This really needs to be cut. Deep mill, you know, a deep mill, maybe a 3-inch mill, perhaps even deeper in these alligator areas where you do some small cut and patch, and then come back with a shim and then an overlay. And things like this, before you actually do the treatments, we recommend doing cores and test pits to really see what the stratification is of the roads. The PCIs that we collected are strictly visual, based on the visual observations. And then we've got Sunnybrook Drive. This is from Gusset to Bethany Drive, and then clearly this one is in base rehab. Poor drainage, alligatoring, really not good use of crack sealing dollars. When we crack seal, we really want to find those longitudinal cracks, those transverse cracks, you know, PCIs in the higher end. But this street is a great candidate for, you know, probably reconstruction. Reclamation could be evaluated, but certainly reconstruction would be considered. So again, it's just, you know, it's spending that dollar early on. Timing is the key. Early on to offset that $6 to $8 cost it's going to incur shortly thereafter. So that's kind of the gist of that. So with that, I want to now jump into the Pavement Management Dashboard. this is something that, excuse me, this is something that's going to be given to Mr. Buckley and the DPW team. They'll have access to this. This is a simple GIS dashboard. It's interactive, and the reason why I want to go into here is it does a nice job of being able to demonstrate the different funding models that we ran as part of the plans. What I'm going to do is just turn off my screen. Just so I know I'm not using up too much bandwidth. Everyone can still see the map. So,
No, there's no
as
map.
Peyton,
We don't see a map, we still see a slideshow.
okay. Let's see. Share.
There you go.
Okay, cool. So again, this is an interactive online GIS dashboard. So as a pavement manager, there's key metrics that we're looking at. So one of the big ones is the average PCI in Rutland, that's 60.9. And something called the backlog. The backlog is $14.8 million, and the backlog represents the cost of bringing up all the streets to a near perfect condition within 1 year. It represents how far behind your net present value or condition is behind. And keep in mind now, the backlog only represents the pavement structure only. So it's from curb to curb and down to the pavement foundation. It does not include drainage. It does not include sidewalks. It does not include, utilities and so forth. It's strictly the pavement structure, the roadway only. When we're talking dollars and backlog here, it doesn't include, a culvert replacement or, things that might go hand in hand with roadway construction projects. So these are snapshots of where we are today. And what we did is determine that we ran what we call an unlimited scenario, a 1 year injection, and this is the the results of that plan. So they're all color coded, based on red being in poor condition and green being to do nothings. So that backlog breaks down into this budget allocation. So of that $14.8 million, 4.4 is in need of base rehab, and 7.8 is in need of SI or structural improvement. And then you can see $2 million for PM in a very small sliver for crack sealing and patching and box sealing is $650K. And then these are just snapshots here. The other thing I wanted to show you here is this histogram. So this is again the distribution of all the miles today as it sits in Rutland. So the whole idea is to try to inject money into a pile of streets and get them over here into the green, right? So that's kind of we look at this curve or this chart a lot to manage the pavements, right? It's all about doing the right streets at the right time, and so these are the tools that will help us look at different scenarios. One of the scenarios we did run is what we call a worst case budget, which is $0 over $0 a year over 5-year period, and that's not included in here, but it is in the report, and it's for a worst case scenario. But we don't expect that to happen because in Massachusetts we get Chapter 90, and most communities use Chapter 90 to reinvest into their roads. So the next scenario we looked at is a 5-year, $450,000 a year, which is about what you get for Chapter 90 over a 5-year period. And the map changes. So these are the actual streets that are a part of that 5-year plan. And what you can see here is what's happening to the backlog? So the backlog is growing to 29.8 million, and the PCI dropping to 41.9. So this is really a regressive funding program, something that we would not want to do. So the next thing we wanted to do is kind of demonstrate the pavement management philosophy. So taking that same amount of money and changing the way we spend it, right? So we look at the budget allocation. If you looked at the previous one, it did more red and yellow, right? So these are the ones that naturally people are complaining about. And so we fix these streets, and here's the result. But what if we change the way we do that? We do some of the yellow, but we focus on what the pavement management philosophy tells us, the blue and the purples. Here you can see we're getting a lot more streets, a lot more miles done. More importantly, if we look at the backlog, 21.7, still regressive, it's growing, but in comparison to how we're spending under a worst case scenario, it's actually an $8.1 million savings over 5 years, just by simply changing the way we spend the money, being smart about where we make our next investments in the roadways. And again, the PCI here is dropping, but it goes to show that we need to spend more money if we're going to maintain what we have. That's a 60.9. So we ran an equilibrium scenario, and we're calling it $1 million a year. And the allocation is spread as such: 2.5 million for structural improvement. So half the money is going to structural improvement. Keep in mind, this is over a 5-year period, this budget allocation. So it's a well-balanced attack. And then we're doing some base rehab, and we're focusing on our PM and RM as we should. And in this case, the backlog does go up a little bit, 18.3. But the backlog, or the PCI rather, is more or less equilibrium. It's a 59.3, slightly lower, but 2 PCI points are very difficult for the public to discern the difference of. It's essentially an equilibrium scenario. I should also state that the cost here include a 3.5% inflation rate. So in year 5, it's spending $1 million, but that $1 million has less buying power, at 3.5% annually over the next 5 years. And then so we also looked at a $2 million program, a progressive program, what we're calling. So here we can see the backlog is now dropping. So we're spending an adequate number of money, number of dollars to lower the backlog and actually see improvement. And then naturally on the PCI side of things, the PCI is going up. So again, 2 million, you're now able to focus on the yellow and the reds, right? In those piles, you're moving them over here. So the whole idea is what we call the kind of the bottom of the band strategy. We want to focus, when we do get money, we want to focus on this pile before it jumps here. And likewise, this pile when it jumps here, because you're going from $25 a square yard to $45, $50 a square yard. It's a big jump. Same thing on this side. You're going from $1.50, 75 cents a square yard, to 10 and 12, up to $15 a square yard. The kind of last thing I want to show you is kind of, what Mr. Buckley able to do is kind of look at the different years and build the program, right? So these are all computed. This is year 1. This is year 2, including year 2. This is year 2. I can look at, my crack seal program. My first order of business is going to do a lot of crack sealing. And so here's a map, let's say we're going to do 3 years worth. Here it is. And so this is sort of a kind of a screening tool that DPW will have at their fingertips. So I'm going to get out of this and go right back into the slideshow. And the recommendation slide, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So in conclusion, the town of Rutland needs to spend more money on its roadways. Chapter 90 certainly is not enough. $1 million at a minimum, and then certainly, anything more is going to be good. Consider going up to $2 million annually each year to improve town-wide conditions. Practice your routine, crack sealing, fog sealing, and start to implement preventative maintenance. Town should spend at least $50,000 a year on a crack sealing program. Out of the gate, even more. But on an annual basis, once they get going, you guys get going, at least 50. Consider microsurfacing, your major arterial collectors, where you've got good pavement structure, no cracking, prevent the oxidation, and saving those streets. Rubber sealing some of the low volume streets that perhaps got a little more distortions, not the rideability's not there, more cracks. In some communities, we actually, I call it a poor man's base rehab, where you have a lot of these country streets that are, in the base rehab treatment ban range. You go in and do some leveling, shimming, and then come back and encapsulate it with a rubber chip. That's something to consider if funding is tight. But certainly you want to try to do the right thing at the right time for all these streets. The other thing is to focus base rehab and structural improvements in the neighborhoods. So the Rutland's PCI for the major roads is a lot higher, 72.4 versus the low volume local neighborhood streets at a 54. So create, a neighborhood paving program. Go into a neighborhood, fix the whole neighborhood, and then next year pick another neighborhood. And then lastly, just continue pavement management. It's an ongoing process. You're measuring, your PCIs, you're monitoring them, you're setting goals, you're making investments, and it's just a matter of tracking those investments to see how your investments are paying off. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Ron, you have a question?
Yeah, I want to make a couple of comments here, and then, I understand. Bill, first of all, I think it's clear here, as it is in probably every town you do this in, is that towns kind of look when you give the numbers of what it would cost just to maintain our roads. They go, we don't have that kind of money. And that's true of most towns. So first, just to kind of give some perspective, in all the towns you've done this for, they all have big backlogs. We're not unique in any way. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's this PCI and this backlog is indicative of a lot of the small communities out in the Worcester County area. And it's no surprise. And there are some communities that have stepped up in investment. Spencer, Mass comes to mind. They had a similar problem 8 years ago, and they had a PCI in the low 49s. Much lower than where Rutland is, but they finally realized that the only way that they're gonna make the improvement is to borrow money and to bond streets, like a progressive program, to be able to tackle the expensive repairs, and use Chapter 90 for the small stuff, for the preventative maintenance. And they're in a position now where their PCI is much higher. And when you have a higher PCI and you're, that histogram, that bar chart that I showed you, if you only have, purple, green, and blue and green piles, it's lower cost, to cycle that into, once you rebuild a street, a properly engineered foundation and roadway, that it should last 20 years, if not more. And if you do your maintenance on your wear and surface course, you preserve that wear and surface course, you should never have to touch the foundation again.
So,
I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. There's drainage, there's other factors.
so Bill, just to get to the $1 million that you're talking about to kind of maintain our roads, for Rutland, that would mean another $550,000 a year to our budget just to get there. In Southbridge, what I tried to do is, after the plan was done, we added $100,000 a year over 5 years. Was our plan to get up to 500,000 plus chapter money got us to that $1 million. So, this plan, I want to be clear on it. Even if you don't have $550,000 more, it gives us, for whatever money we do, it gives us a very specific plan on how to get the best use of whatever dollars we have. And as you increase by any amount, those dollars are being spent at a better quality by having this plan in place. Right? So this plan's important no matter what. In Southbridge, they got up to about $300,000, so they had the Chapter 90 money at $300,000. Instead of building up to the 5 years, they then used, after I left, they used that $300,000 to pay debt service on a bond package. So is that the better way to go? If we were able to, I'm not saying we're going to, but let's say you added $100,000 next year for the next 3 years to the budget. Does it then make more sense to bond, I don't know, $4 million or whatever, and use that money to pay debt service, and go that path than to, try to get to that $1 million number?
Yeah, I'm not a financial expert, on exactly how to take that money and where to spend it. I mean, we all have a mortgage, and we got to be smart about what we borrow, and so we can afford the mortgage at the end of the day. But certainly, it is cheaper to spend money now on your roadway network, whether you borrow it, bond it, and pay it for debt service, or you pay as you go. Now than it is to wait. And right now, Rutland is a sinking ship, right? If you're going to continue on Chapter 90, you're sinking at such a rate that you're only, able to scoop out so much water, less than what's coming in.
Rutland and most other towns, but I guess my last comment is, a lot of us have heard about the federal plan for infrastructure. And there's a lot of hope that some of those federal dollars might come down to the local communities. Is there any word about that we might get federal help in some way to fix local roads, or is that really going to be allocated towards federal and state infrastructure?
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, that's being delegated from the state, and that'll get trickled down to the towns.
So whatever we do get, we can allocate into this plan and get whatever money it is, we can improve through that process. Probably not going to be anywhere near the $500,000 to get us to $1 million, but whatever we get is a benefit to be able to use in this plan.
Yes.
It's Leah. I have a question.
Yep.
So if the town were in a position to borrow money to get to that $1 to $2 million per year, kind of for the next 5 years, to get pretty much, my understanding would be that get a majority of the roadways kind of up into that upper echelon, quarter or 2/3 of that histogram. At what point would do you estimate that our Chapter 90 money could sustain our maintenance to keep our roads within that targeted area? Obviously, probably not the green that they're in near perfect condition, but in the more preventative space, do you feel that even if we were able to do a 5 years at, let's just, pie in the sky, 5 years at $2 million, and we get everything kind of as close to good as possible, do you feel, is there any sense that the 450-ish that we get in Chapter 90 money is then able to sustain those if we are smart about allocating it to the crack filling and the routine maintenance? Or do you think that this is, a major ongoing every, 5 or 10 years we're going to be looking at having to invest a whole lot additional money into the roads?
Yeah, I'd have to run that model, but I can give you some rough numbers. Just give me a sec here. So,
Yeah.
So again, you can see my dashboard, right?
Yes.
So the backlog is 14.8, and it's unfortunately it's mostly orange and red, right? So it's 7.8 and 4. So you'd have to spend you'd have to eradicate $12 million worth of today's backlog over 5 years, or even probably longer, to get to a point where your current Chapter 90 is enough to maintain that PCI, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I was getting at, and that's helpful. So kind of we would need to ideally look at the almost 15,000 in today's money to eradicate, get everything up into that kind of blue-green region in the histogram, that then ideally the Chapter 90 money should be able to maintain that prevent anything from going significantly worse.
That's right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anybody else on the board have any questions?
This is Carol. A little bit of a follow-up to Leah. My question was, you were looking at, so we've got 80.4 miles of road that you're looking at. What is in today's dollars, if we were at nearly all green, what would the average per mile cost be to maintain those roads?
I can give it to you in square yards. So instead of by miles, it's per square yard. So if you were all in green and blue, it would cost you about $1 a square yard. Given where you are today, it's more, closer to probably 20, in the low 20s per square yard.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Joe, do you have any comments?
Just a couple quick things. We're supposed to get some funding from the state transportation bond bill to address pavement conditions on numbered routes, which includes 56 and 68. They've been a little cryptic on how they're proceeding, so as soon as I have some more information, I'll make that available. We also have some pending utility work in a couple of the neighborhoods, and we usually include paving with that. The good thing about the dashboard is anytime work is done, that whether we fund it or not, the goal here is to put that information into the dashboard and it adjusts on its own. So I think obviously that the funding's a concern, but I think it's going to be a great tool going forward.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Bill.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for allowing me to speak and listening to my here as I try to heal from this COVID.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Hope you feel better.
Good night.
All right, thank you.
Sounds like he's getting it. His wife was sick, but it sounds like he's getting it.
Before I forget, folks, Stantec is a big firm, a national firm, and Bill was able to bring it down to a human level and take it to just Rutland, and he did a great job with that. So, put some stock in that, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah?
I'm just wondering before we let Joe go, do you have any discussion on item 252, which is that sign issue?
Right, I was gonna go back to that. We had just.
Yeah, just before we let Joe,
Yep.
because we can go, you don't have to stay through the whole rest of it.
So, 252 is the Board of Selectmen to vote to send a letter to owners requesting a waiver to allow signs to remain. This is regarding the email that Joe had sent out to us that we had discussed briefly at the last select board meeting. And Carol and I had met with Ron. We had some discussions regarding that. I don't think we didn't feel that a blanket waiver was really appropriate. In looking at this, it really only looks like there's about 5 property owners that are involved. So we're probably looking at about 5 letters to be sent out, which really isn't quite as much as I thought it was going to be. I don't know why when I originally looked at the email, I thought the list was much more extensive.
So, Joe, just to be clear, the chairman basically would like to send a letter to each of the companies that have a sign there, just to give verification that they want the sign to stay. So he just wants a letter from each of those companies confirming it, and that would be fine. But we just want to make sure, I think from our conversation, that we don't have companies that maybe went out of business or have no need for the sign or don't want the sign anymore.
Just basically notifying them that, we've been notified that they have a sign or whatever they have on town property. And if they wish to retain it, that they send a letter to the board requesting a waiver. And I think it'd probably be prudent that we say that they will retain any responsibility in maintenance or removal if necessary in the future. I don't know if, Carol, do you want to make some kind of a... Leah, do you have any comments regarding the signs or the property issues?
No, I think that makes sense, because if it's true that there are a few that kind of are no longer in existence or functioning or whatever, I think a lot of signs make sense where they are, just they're not in the roadway, it's the end of the functional roadway as it is, so to move them off of what is defined as the roadway would not make sense for the type of sign or activity that is there. But if there are, out of date items or things that don't have no use any longer or whatever, I think it's fine opportunity to provide a little bit of cleanup on that side also. So I like that take, and I kind of did a quick drive-by to gauge where everything was so I could visualize it myself. And again, a lot of the stuff I can't envision pushing it much farther off the functional roadway than it is. So I totally understand why everything is where it is, and so I think it's a formality for us at this point, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I just think that just going forward too, that, if we do it as a blanket, then we're opening ourselves up to just allow anybody to put anything on public property. So I think it should be addressed individually, personally.
I'm just wondering, is any liability on us? So there's road work going to be happening, that's why this came to our attention. If something happens to a sign, it is trespassing, we're allowing them to keep it there, but I don't wanna take responsibility.
Well, that's why I said in the letter they
So-
would retain,
And I would use the word
ma-
trespassing, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, just so it's clear.
and they'd be responsible for the item and
Yep.
maintaining it, and if it goes to disrepair, then we have the right to remove it. 'Cause, if somebody else leaves a sign there that's trashed and becomes an eyesore, we don't wanna be battling with somebody as far as removal as well, so.
Mr. Chairman, if the DPW director sends a letter out to the individuals and they respond to him and say, yes, they want another sign, does it first need to come back to the Board of Selectmen for approval? Or can Joe just say, okay, it's okay to give the sign?
I mean,
How
how
do
does
you
the
wanna
board feel? Does the board feel that we should? Joe, did they say that the board has to approve a license or a waiver?
I wish they were a little bit more clear, but I believe it belongs with the board.
Yeah, we should come back to us.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we may not get responses from all of them. I mean, once the responses come in, we can do a blanket waiver if we want. But I guess the board should sign off on it. It sounded like that's what they expected.
Right. Basically, you're giving people permission to encroach on town property.
Does that work for your timing, Joe, with the state? Because the state wants us, because we're talking about another couple of weeks for the board to Now, you to get the letters out, you to get signatures, and then a couple of weeks before the board votes on it, does that work for the state's timing?
It should be all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
If it has to go any quicker than that, I'll let you know.
we're only working with 5 individuals here, I think, so I mean, I think it's manageable.
We have to work with the church also, don't they have some stuff encroaching?
Right, but that's what I'm saying, they're one of the 5, they have like 3 or 4 different items, so. That'd be one, we could just do that in one letter, just mention the items that pertain to them.
Are we good then, Joe?
I think we're good. As long as the board's decided to proceed, that's fine.
Alright? Is the board good?
The only thing I would mention is, in the future, I did do a quick review of the bylaw. Future signage for, on other streets, I guess, belongs to the building inspector.
Right. Right, these just happen to have been on public property.
These
right?
are just pre-existing, yeah.
Right, so, okay. We're good? I don't think we need a motion, right? Just get that ready.
Great.
Need the motion.
2 weeks you will, once we get it before
Right.
you, then you need the money, but right now, Joe's just gonna set the letter, get it out, get the letters to you, and then you guys will make a motion to approve those signs.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
So you want us to just send the letters out, just so we're clear?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Do you
we can
call
get
it
that
an
done.
easement?
Thank you.
You call it an easement?
No, it doesn't need, it's not an easement, it's just approval to do it, yeah. You don't wanna give any permanent easement, that's a whole complicated than that.
All right, next on the agenda is select board to review and accept a festival program grant from the Mass Cultural Council.
You see what we got here right now?
Oh,
Everybody came.
right, but
Exactly.
Sheila's here too, it doesn't matter what you go.
I think hers is gonna be briefer.
All right, let's do it.
Unless you guys wanna fight it out and see who wants to go.
No, we've been fighting it out all day.
Yeah. She would win easily.
I was gonna say, the 3 of you all came from the same place, so I don't. Sheila, you wanna? go?
I'm gonna head out, everybody. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. So, as you know, the 300th committee is applying for every grant we can find. One of the grants that has consistently been available, although I don't know that Rutland has often taken advantage of it, is a Cultural Council Festivals Grant. This year, I think because, and they didn't really say this outright, but I think because so many festivals last year and even within the past 18 months had been canceled, they actually split it into 2 sessions. So you were allowed to apply for 2 different festivals grant. The first was for festivals running from September through March. There will be a second round of this for festivals running from, I think it's June through September. We encourage the Historical Society to apply as well, as they are their own entity, and they received the festivals grant as well for $1,500 to help support the festival trees, which was fantastic. In our case, what we applied for this round, again, the fall-winter round of the festivals grant, was to help us support events coming up for the month of February, which is our Founders Day month. The Historical Society is also planning events that include, if the building is ready, a tea at the building. We're going to be supporting them. The festivals grant doesn't cover everything. You can't just buy whatever you want. You can't buy food. But what you can do is use the money towards working on things like marketing. And we have a townwide mailer coming up. We're going to be able to put a portion of the money towards that townwide mailer, which is quite expensive for every address in the town. We'll also be able to use the money for speakers if they come in. We're working on getting some speakers for February, including somebody from the Mass State Archives or possibly the Antiquarian Society. So those speaker fees or any travel expenses are also included. One of the things we're trying to do, haven't made a ton of progress yet, is to try to get the town an ice skating rink. Rutland Recreation put a lot of effort into researching this, and they found a great one that is going to work for us. We're watching towns put up rinks all over the place. All of our neighbors have one. Most of them are getting built by hand with donated materials. Based on Rutland's needs and the ability of our town staff to really put any help in, because we're so short-staffed, we think Rutland Recreation's solution is a fantastic one. It's kind of a new product. It's made here in the United States. The company is based in Newton. It's called Easy Ice. It can be put up in about an hour, and our plan is to put it up on the basketball court. It is a rink that is expected to be able to be used year after year after year. I bring this up because the grant cannot pay for the rink, but it can pay for giving people access to it. So for example, we can offer a party at the rink if it goes up. We can offer free tickets to something like a special event. We're hoping that some of the money is going to be able to go towards that. Also in February, we have a night at the Railers. This grant will allow us to offer something like a family 4-pack as a raffle option, again, to try to keep things accessible for people. And we're also planning a night at Wachusett Mountain for the town of Rutland. The Crowley family was very generous. They suggested that we try to do a learn to ski night for Rutland residents that evening. And again, that's some other place where this grant is able to be used. So we do have some limitations. It is a reimbursement grant, as usual. We do have to provide them with all the documentation about what we end up spending the money for. So this is $1,500.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Leah, do you have any questions?
No, I love the idea of it, and I appreciate all the work that the 300th and the Historical Society have been doing to kind of work towards getting these grants, seeking them out and applying for them, and really having ideas as to how they can be used. So I appreciate that.
Skip, do you have any?
What's the insurance on this? Town's insurance cost?
So this is the same insurance umbrella policy that the basketball court already holds in the pool. So this is essentially just another recreational opportunity. Unlike some of the other events that we did where I think, as you know, we had to add and pay for a rider for DCR to be added to the insurance in order to do the polar plunge. This is something that we can already take on because we already own the basketball court.
Okay.
Anything else? No? Carol?
It just came to my mind, but is, talking about pavement, if we're gonna have any structural damage to the, it can handle all of that weight?
Yes.
All right, that's all.
And actually,
We don't need to fix something else.
We're happy to send you the information. Again, Recreation did an enormous amount of work on this. We're hoping they're gonna be able to match some of the costs. This is something that will be gifted to the town and most likely to the Recreation Department once this year is done. And so, yeah, they were very adamant that they wanted to make sure it was a situation where, unlike some of the other towns where they're putting it up on grass, we actually should see less damage than some of the others.
It would be easier too.
Now, is it gonna be fenced off at any way or anything? It's just gonna be an open?
It's open. It's open, and this rink is modular, so you can make it bigger or smaller. You can add different kinds of sideboards. The company, when we talked to them, suggested that we keep the rails fairly low so that we don't encourage hockey use, even though this is exactly what they originally designed it for. The kid that designed it is local. He ended up at Yale. This was his baby, this project, and he was a hockey player. So there's a full setup with, you know, some pretty big sides that you can use, and we're not going to entertain that.
Any other questions? Anybody else have any questions? Awesome, great job.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
you're gonna need to vote to approve the.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, so if I can get a motion?
Motion to approve.
So we have to say the amount.
Whitman seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. You get a first and a second? Go ahead, Leah.
Whitman seconds. Do we need to add the signing authority to the town administrator? I think that we already have that blanket covered anyway. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's where it says contractor, is that supposed to be where the town administrator signs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. town administrator.
So, any problem, the motion with signature by the town administrator,
Nope,
just
no
to be
problem
safe?
whatsoever.
All right, no problem, Leah?
Nope, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Roll call,
Clock eye.
Benoit eye?
Whitman, aye.
and Nichols' eye. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Are you guys gonna do it separate?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
separate.
Okay.
We try to keep.
We're
Take them up.
Board of Health first,
Yeah, sure.
and then he'll rescue you.
So, as of today, 1/10, we have 165 folks testing positive. That's the 10-day reading, and I'm gonna explain this. So if you look at the 5-day reading, the number is 77. So what do you mean 5 or 10? So everybody, the state, everybody looks at the 10-day reading for the true count of folks who test positive. But we also can look at the 5-day because of the whole new CDC rulings. that people who are vaccinated with no, no symptoms, they could be clear in 5 days. So just for that reason alone, we look at the 5 day just to gauge everything, because most of the folks that we can find that are vaccinated, we're counting them into that 77. So that's just where that number comes from, but the true number is 165. And that's as of today. If you want, I can give you a quick little breakdown by ages. I've got ages, I've got whether vaccinated or not. I don't know if you want me to go that deep, but I have those numbers.
If the numbers are heavy on one way or another, I guess if it
you know
seems
what?
to be hitting
So-
a larger age group, or if it happens to be doing something else, it's.
No, not really. Honest,
Okay.
right now, the biggest is 26 to 49. That's also probably the biggest population age group.
Okay.
If anything, we are seeing 25 to 45 age group spike up a little bit, and we this is pure guesstimation. A lot of that's a younger crowd that might be out, doing things socially, entertainment-wise, or that might be a crowd where they have younger kids who aren't vaccinated, either in pre-K or in the lower grades. So that could be a reason. I mean, that's just pure guesstimation. That's not anything definite that we know. When we look at the vaccination rate, so Worcester County, this is as of December 30th. Worcester County is 74.6 completely vaccinated of the population of Worcester County, and at least one dose, it's 85.1. Rutland, on the other hand, is 78 totally vaccinated and 87.2 with at least one dose. And again, these numbers are as of December 30th, and we personally have been holding vaccination clinics all along, as well as people can go somewhere else. So when the new numbers come out, I think this Thursday, we should be pretty good into the mid-80s for fully vaccinated, and possibly close to 90, at least one vaccination.
In hospitalizations are down or whatever?
Yes, yeah. In fact, the number of the 165 number is down from, we were probably low 200s. By low, I mean 202, 203 a couple days ago. And we're now starting to see that trend come down. The numbers of positives come down, slowly but surely every day. So that's a good thing. And I think that's starting to be said, nationally as well, that they think it might have either hit the peak, or, the issues, it's not as bad as it once was, or it will be going forward. So that's a good thing. Guesstimate, I think by the end of the month, things will be good. Probably by the end of February, it'll be back to quote unquote normal, as normal can be in this, this day and age.
And with the mask mandate, masks being provided in all the buildings, Ron, do you know? They are.
Yeah.
We're looking at, and Scott may mention it, but actually Seth is, we're also looking at using some of the ARPA money to buy supplies now that CARES money's gone. So the chief can mention a little bit about that.
I just want to make sure if we're mandating, it's not preventing people if they don't.
No, we
have
haven't any
access,
problem.
so,
There's masks available if you want to.
And what we're also seeing is it's probably close to 100% the Omicron, as opposed to any other variant out there. And this actually, the switch over from this to the previous variants actually was quicker than, I think, the Delta going from the variant before that. So it happened pretty quickly. But again, as you're probably hearing, the symptoms are a lot less, especially if vaccinated. So I guess that's a good piece of it.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions for Scott? Leah, do you have any questions?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
And we're closing in on 80,000 for total vaccinations that we've done out of the year.
Awesome.
And also, tomorrow is our 1-year anniversary from our first clinic that we held at the fire station for all the first responders.
Yeah, the anniversary party.
Yeah, no.
We can really get those numbers to spike.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody all set? Awesome. Thank you. Good job. Chief, you wanna?
Sure. Obviously, we close out calendar year 2021. For our annual report and our statistical data, We do it on calendar year, we don't do it on fiscal year, and that's just because we have to report it to the state based on calendar year. So if you look at our total call volume for the 2021, we did 1,535 calls. Of that, we did 930 ambulance calls, so almost 2/3 of our call volume is ambulance driven. So it's been a very busy year. We're almost 10% over last year. And if you go back 10 years ago, our call volume was 600. So in 10 years, we've gone from 600 to 1,500 in 10 years. I was here a few months ago talking about the call wages, and we had talked about Southborough as an example. We did 100 calls more than the town of Southborough in 2021. They have a $2.2 million budget. We have a $1.1 million budget. They have 26 full-time staff. We have 12. So we're doing more calls and answering more calls of service with less people, and it's definitely taken a toll on our staff. Obviously, you've all heard as the COVID numbers have gone up, COVID has run through the entire public safety building, both police, fire, and dispatch. Everyone is basically gone through the whole cycle, and we're starting to get them to return to work. So we started having people test positive just before Christmas, and now it's just basically it's run the building. It's just like the flu, it just went through the building, and everyone is recovering, coming back in good spirits and moving forward. So other than that, things are going well. Just put it into perspective, our fire loss, damage loss in town was $200,000 townwide. Now that is amazing compared to 3 years ago when we were almost $3 million in fire damage loss. A lot of that has to do with full-time staff able to answering the call much faster and not waiting for additional staff. We've had a lot of kitchen fires in the last year, and because we're there within the 4 to 5 minutes, we're able to make a quick stop and lessen the damage before it gets too big. So by adding the staff that we did 3 years ago, we've seen a decline in the fire damage loss. And again, it all hinges on early reporting of the notification of the fire. Obviously, if a fire happens in your home and no one's home and it's delayed call before a neighbor or passerby, at that point, it's a write-off. But basically, if someone's home and it immediately notifies us, we're there quick enough and we're able to make a good stop and save lives and property. So it's a good statistic to look at. As we move forward with the FEMA updates, obviously we closed out CARES funding. I got information back that they are moving forward with the reimbursement. Problem is everyone closed CARES at the same time. So every city and town across the country is trying to reconcile with FEMA. So there is some movement on that. So Dan is very happy that we'll start seeing some of that money come back. Similar to the FEMA reimbursements, as we're doing the vaccine clinics, that is fully supported, fully funded by FEMA and through the Department of Public Health here in Mass. So those fundings are moving as well. So it's all good. Back in October, we talked about the emergency management plan, the town emergency management plan as a whole. The departments that were involved have reviewed their pieces. It's been sent back to MEMA for their review. Once they say yes, it'll be coming in front of the board for your approval in the next month or so. So that is moving very forward. I'll give you some ideas on some grants and what's going on. Obviously, as you know, in 2018, which we ended up starting in 2019, we were awarded the SAFER grant to hiring the 3 full-time staff. That grant expires February 2nd of 2023, so that's a year from now. At that point, when you get into the budget process this year, you'll see that we pick up the full cost of those full-time staff. But I need to point out, in the 3-year period that the full-time staff is here, our ambulance revenue has increased by $185,000 over that time period. Town's cost for those 3 people is $165,000. So while you may see a large increase in the budget for next year in wages because we're absorbing it. You really need to look at the 3-year data of the revenue that we're generating each year. So our ambulance is generating more revenue because we have more staff. We're able to answer more calls instead of giving it away to other communities. So that's a good sign. Emergency management planning grant through MEMA. We've applied. It's a $3,000 grant. We match that every year with the line item we have in the emergency management department. That's being used to buy new radios for the new ambulance that we received funding for, so it'll take care of that piece. DCR, we apply each year, and this is one of those grants that is population based. So thankfully we're still, with the new census for 2020, we're still under the 10,000, so we still qualify for this. So in 2030 we probably won't, when the next federal census comes out. But this is a matching grant. We put money aside in our budget. It's a 50% match. So we put up $3,000. The state will kick in $3,000, so we can purchase up to $6,000 worth of equipment. It's specifically for forest fire related items. So we've been able to leverage town money every year. So that's working well. We do the student education of fire in the Senior Safe program. We've applied for that. We've been awarded $5,300 for that to cover wages and expenses to bring those programs to our young kids and to our seniors as well. Back in November, we applied for the Assistant to Firefighter grant. This is the same grant program. We got the ambulance awarded to us last year. Each year we apply for things that are on our capital plan that we try to chip away at. Our ladder truck is coming up on 23 years old, so we applied to replace the ladder. The grant is pending, and we should know by September. And the grant amount was for $1.25 million. So that is in the works as well. Budget for FY22. Obviously, we've had cuts moving forward, and things are going relatively well. One of the major things that we cut was in vehicle maintenance. We've had some significant breakdowns, so we've been trying to, cover the cost of those things. We do have an engine out now being serviced. Some of the things are being covered by warranty items, but there are some other things that may not be, so I don't know what that price is going to be. As I spoke earlier, we talked about number of COVID positive staff members, and because it takes 2 people to operate an ambulance, we have to backfill the people that are out. Not that we're in the red in our overtime, but this last 2 weeks, 3 weeks has been a huge drain on our overtime budget. I know it's been the same for police and dispatch. And that's something that just everyone needs to be aware of, and we'll try to limit overtime going forward into the spring. But again, it's health related internally, and it's also large call volume related.
So we still get reimbursement for anybody out from COVID, right?
No.
No?
We would if we utilized ARPA funds. Okay, so on sick time, yes, only up to $850 or 40 hours.
Right.
So that only covers 23 hours for one.
But it'll cover some of the portion of the
Yeah,
loss.
but if they're out 5 to 10 days,
Right.
it's
Right. I just wanted to know if some
yes.
of that one.
Yeah, so we've been working with Becky to get all that information to her so she can wrap it up and submit for that.
Okay.
FY23 budget's been submitted to the town administrator. Him and I have met. We've gone through everything. Some cuts have been made. That's fine. You'll see them in the report, what I've asked for and what the recommendation is. So it's cut and dry. It's very clear. And we basically, our goal is to try to regain as much as we were cut and not more. Just trying to get back to a level playing field where we were 2 years ago. And that's pretty much all I have. That's about it.
What the supplies, the ARPA money you were talking
Oh, yeah, as Ron had alluded to earlier, Joe and I and Scott and I have been talking, just because we've used CARES money over the last couple of years to really leverage cleaning supplies, things like that, to keep our buildings clean, because we don't have that resource. We're putting together a budget, not big dollars, little stuff, for wipes, hand cleaner and stuff like that. So basically that we can get through this surge into the springtime. So we'll be coming forward to the board as the ARPA committee meets to recommend some type of number to mitigate some of those problems.
I did see some of the posting on some of the reports of all the work that the department has done and stuff like that. I like to see that so the public has the opportunity to see what the departments are doing. I think that helps when you're out there trying to promote support. And I was curious, Scott, the numbers on the COVID stuff, do you guys post that under the Board of Health? Do you keep any kind of statistics listed?
So, go ahead. So what happens is their information comes to us.
Okay.
That information goes to dispatch. If you go to dispatch's website, you'll see the numbers of cases in all the 5 towns that they manage. They have like a dashboard that people can see it.
So people can obtain
it is obtainable, yes. Yep.
Now, do you have a link to tell them to go to that by any chance on the board? Website?
We have the RREC website, the link on there, more for people to get appointments for vaccination, but we'll list that too.
I just think it's nice if people can, if they want to access to see what the numbers and what the situations are.
We'll list that as well.
One of the things that I just sent out an email to Scott and Seth about, I guess the state is setting up a system too for vaccinations, where because I think they're getting a lot of calls from people asking for the vaccination cards and everything else. The state now is saying they're setting up a website where citizens can directly go to the website and get vaccination cards.
Actually, we all tested it. So, do you mind if I speak?
Yeah, nice.
So, it's finally here. Massachusetts now has a QR code. So, if you go on the website, we'll put that on our website, and you enter your name that you've used for any vaccines, not just the COVID vaccinations. It sends you a link back either to your email or to your phone, and then it prints you up a QR code. So now, hopefully, fingers crossed going forward, instead of showing a card, you show that QR code, somebody will be able to scan it and say, oh, yep. And what's great is it not only includes COVID vaccinations, but every vaccination you've ever had. So like I just did mine, it listed all my, my flu vaccines, and just lists everything. So it's gonna be a better way so people aren't carrying cards anymore.
Yeah, my son almost wasn't able to go on a plane because he didn't have one of those.
Right, yeah. Because Massachusetts has kind of been behind the ball where, I should say the U.S. has been behind the ball. I mean, anywhere in Europe you go, that's all they use right now is the QR code. So
who has access to what data when they scan that?
It's from the MIS system.
Yeah, but so you're saying somebody would scan that at the airport?
Yeah.
And see that they were vaccinated?
Yeah, see all your vaccinations.
Isn't that HIPAA violation?
Yeah.
I mean, my
I guess it's like presenting the card too.
Yeah,
telling
it's the same thing as presenting the card.
That's
still an issue.
scary.
But the fact that it shows everything, I don't understand why.
Yeah, it shows all my vaccinations.
Again, Carol, you don't have to show it, so.
I know.
Well, you do
If you're
with
making
well,
decisions,
like I said, they weren't
you're
going to let my
releasing
son on the plane without it.
Right.
He had to
that's a
actually
problem.
call somebody on the internet and had it converted and everything else and got on the plane. But
And I think even Delta Airlines created a similar, I think Delta, maybe Qantas, or some other airline, the same type of thing, that it was a QR code, but this was just strictly for the COVID vaccines, where people could use it in order to get on a Delta or a Qantas or whatever airline they need to get on.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Leah, do you have any questions for Scott or for the chief?
No, thanks. I don't see the presentation right now, Seth, but I'll look at it once I get back in the state. And I always appreciate looking at the presentations everybody puts together, because I think it's helpful for all of us to see the amount of work that the departments are doing with the limited funds or the grant funds and everything. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, great job. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Discussion to review and I'm gonna read it down. Oh, we should get her right ones too, right? So Sheila did her presentation. All right, the only other thing left is a discussion on the Moses Howe nomination deadline. And the only reason I had this put on the agenda is we had never set a deadline. I did look, and previously it looked like it was a 30-day window of when the applications were being received. I think it was like November to December. And I believe we opened this at the end of December, so I don't know if the board wants to entertain the end of January to close the nominations. And
You want a motion to do that?
I mean, I'm asking if that's what the board feels is appropriate, or.
Yeah, I think we should be voting at the next meeting so that we can, yes.
Right, so, yeah, but I think we need to give everybody the date for a deadline, so that people have an
So
opportunity.
it's Leah, I have a question.
Yep.
When, and I should know this and I don't off the top of my head and I forgot to look. When is Moses Hell Day? When do we award this? Is it April or May sometime? I'm just trying to get the
I know it's right
obvious-
around spring, like around April, May. The number
It's
from,
May. I think last
May.
time they said it was like in May.
yeah. So, I mean, we
Okay.
have plenty of time to nominate somebody and close it out. I just want to give adequate time for people to submit nominations, so that they're aware of what the deadline is, so.
Right, yeah, no,
Are you good with a 1 month period, Leah? Does that sound reasonable to?
yeah, I think that makes sense. That gives us plenty of time to fit it into our agendas and everything and make sure that we have a plan and then like the plaque and everything put together for the presentation on Moses Hell Day. So I think that makes sense.
So that's, like I said, we're looking probably at the end of January as the deadline, so I'm trying to see.
January 31.
31's a Monday. So is that good? We'll make a motion, to have somebody make a motion to close it out as of January 31st, and we'll have Anita update the website.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call,
Clock eye.
Annoyed eye?
Whitman, I.
and Nichols eye. Thank you. All right, Ron gave us a little bit of an update on the economic development. Anything new on any of the updates on the websites? No?
No, but I have seen, Facebook is really starting to move forward with the foundation, sorry, it's escaping my mind.
I'm sorry.
The crumbling foundations. Things are really starting to pump up on Facebook, so we probably wanna, I know that Anita was looking at repurposing or asking the developers for the website.
You have to get that, when you're creating new pages, you have to ask them to create the
Yeah.
new pages. And that was one of the things, I mean, Charlton already has a lot of information we could take
Mhm.
and put to that, but we gotta convert whatever they have in Charlton, put it, so we can talk to Anita about
Okay.
getting that done.
Boards and commissions, I think we filled vacancies on boards and
Yeah,
commissions.
I don't have the vacancies in front of me, but I know there's
I
still
think
vacancies.
we-
It's
Both of
like
us.
difficult getting anybody to be interested.
Are we like putting them on the electric?
They're all on the website, the latest.
Well, what about the electric board once in a while? Do we update and say there's
I'm sorry,
maybe
the what board?
the electric sign? Do we every once in a while
You can put it
maybe?
up again, I know it was up at one point, but it's
Yeah.
probably down again, so.
Just once in a while, just to
Yeah, we'll just
remind
ask
people
if we
if
can
there are
post every once in a while,
opportunities
yeah.
available, so. I know you had talked about that when you were in the library, Leah, and we were talking about trying to get the youth involved in government, and is anything new on that program that you know of, or?
So I wasn't able to hop on the last library trustees meetings. That was around the budget roundtable for the schools that I went to. So I'll try to follow up with the library directors and board of directors and see if, or trustees, and see if there's any movement on that and follow up. Similar, try to follow up. I think that CMRPC did not have any plan or package put together to do like a boards and commissions wide retreat day or something. So I was going to try to reach out to the MMA or a couple of the other communities and see if anybody had any experience doing something similar and try to get something in place for, ideally I would think, given the COVID and everything, you know, spring or summer timeline, hopefully as numbers trend down and everything, we can do something to get everybody together.
Leah, I did have a discussion with Janet about that, and yeah, you're absolutely correct that CMRPC doesn't have any kind of program like that at all.
Maybe some form of the Department of Education or something like that might have a program.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list, and I'll try to get to it maybe this week, to reach out to MMA and see if they have any sort of support for that, and then, if not, see, you know, Department of Education. Or I know that there are, you know, programs available, but just not necessarily tailored specifically to municipal, government, and if there's anybody that's comfortable kind of tailoring it to a municipal government, outline or something. So I'll try to work on that this week.
I'm just curious, I remember like Mike Nicholson talking about when he was in school and being the mayor for a day or something, like they must have had some kind of a program. I'd be curious to know if that still exists or what kind of program they held. That might be a source, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I think Anna Maria and Clark also have good, or MPA programs, Masters of Public Administration programs. So they might even have resources if the schools themselves can't do it, but also have locally have resources that can point us towards a better direction. So I'll do some digging this week.
Okay, thank you. Human resources, I know that Carol and Leah, you guys are working on the matrix still.
Yep.
Whenever you're ready, you'll let us know.
Ron gave us some additional information today. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay.
So just what she's referring to, I found the 2016 Don Jacobs report. It was fascinating because I checked everything. I spent a long time looking on my electronic files, and I found a hard copy is when I ended up finding of it. But I think it will be very helpful, and I outlined some of the things that I think has to be done to update and revise that, which is quite frankly pretty complicated stuff. But as it turns out, that book has a whole bunch of resumes that we're doing in 2016, and we're going to package whatever resumes we could find on our electronic version and send it to them. Now I found it. We have all the resumes in 2016 or the job descriptions. So in some cases, for instance, Becky was saying her resume was or her job description was updated, and they've been using that 2016. So probably the ones that I wasn't even aware of that we were using for the individual spots that came up were from that 2016.
Good.
But, obviously 2016 is some time ago, so what you generally do is you meet with the individual staff member in that position, you find out how their jobs have trained, and you update it. You also compare that job description to the same type of job description in another town. So it's pretty extensive stuff, but at least now we have a foundation to work from,
Yes.
and I think Carol will have a lot to review going forward.
All right, thank you.
Carol,
Annual budget, you've got all your budgets in, you'll get
yeah, the
them-
budgets
you're getting
we're
them
in
to
good
the
shape.
finance
It's really
committee.
it's just information that's just not out yet. We just gotta simply wait until we get the school budgets, both the Vaping and the town one, the health insurance number, the state revenue numbers. I've set us up in pretty good shape, but I can't balance it or do anything until I get those numbers. So once I have those numbers, we're gonna do it fast. I have talked to Dan. If Dan's ready, I gave him sort of my preliminary kind of information so far. So me and Dan are on the same track. It's just a matter of getting the information we need to fill it out. And my budget book is in fairly good shape, but I need to get it complete so that I can build budget books for all the members. And
So we have the school set up for a meeting, so you're good with that, Karen, as far as the timing until you guys get the budget, until we get those other numbers?
We're gonna wait.
Do you want anything before then?
But the only thing that I haven't heard yet is that information that I sent you a while ago, that Howie will need all the information on the salaries to tie back to the budget. So it's by name, their amount, the amount of the if there's a COLA, if there's a step, so that it ties to what it says, so that.
But I thought that Becky gave you the budget, the individual employees and the amounts. The steps are not in because that's a project that Carol and Leah are working on, but the COLAs you should have already had by now.
I want, with the budget, thing that says, Mrs. ABC makes this amount of money. Here's how much we put in for the COLA, and any other things that get put into that budget to tie out to their salary line.
Yeah,
Because,
everything will be there but the steps, because we have no idea what's gonna happen with that report, but everything else.
right, but it's amazing how stuff gets put into those salary lines every year. And when we were going
What do you mean
through,
by stuff? Classifications? Like if town clerk gets $1,000 bump, what do you mean by
yeah,
stuff?
but it's not really a step, but it's a little extra. There's extra things that get put in, so I want to make sure that it ties out to the budget, so that, God forbid, anything has to happen, we'll have something to go back and tie to.
Yeah,
We didn't have that last year.
Yeah, I gotta have to talk to Becky and see what we have. I know she has with the COLA stuff. I don't know about, like I said, those little classification things. If you make a certain classification, you get an extra grant. I'm not sure if that's right, but I gotta talk to Becky and see if we have some kind of.
But that should be, the department head should be able to tie
Well, that'll
that.
come in the individual department budgets.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that this way it ties to somebody who is
You're looking for an
responsible for
overall
payroll.
sheet, I just don't know.
I want one sheet that says
I don't know
Mrs.
that that
ABC
exists,
makes
though.
this amount of money, here's gonna be what it is. I
Yeah.
want it all nice and easy
Yeah, I
to
just
tie
don't know
up.
if it exists in that format, that's what I gotta talk about, but we'll.
Yeah.
So you're getting actuals, right? So you'll be able to see exactly what was spent in that line item as opposed to what's.
Well, she'll see it in the budget book by department, she'll see it, but I think she's
But the
actually
actuals
like
that
a
was
master
spent
sheet, that's what she's
this
looking.
previous year and what's projected to be spent.
Yeah, she's looking for a master sheet of what she would get in
Right.
the department framework, and like I said, I think part of what she's asking for exists, I just don't think it is in the quite the way she wants it, but I understand. We'll give her the best we have, and we'll give her whatever we got.
It's just a spreadsheet you pull right off the wage sheet, right? I mean, it's not.
If not, then give me 6 different spreadsheets and I'll put it together so that we'll have it to tie out to the budget. Because one way or the other, it's gonna tie back.
Well,
It's
that's
what-
something that we
it's
can
what
work
I
on
do.
getting that information now because we're not waiting for numbers on,
Yeah.
we're not
Well,
waiting for
that's
other
the thing,
numbers.
that
right?
should be something that should be able to be
Right,
done
so
now.
we can work on that at least and then,
Right.
once the rest of the budget's ready,
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
scheduling meetings. All right, does anybody on the board have anything else or? Before Skip jumps up and closes us? All right, I get,
Let young lady do it.
Motion we adjourn.
Second it, right off quick.
all right, roll call.
Clock eye.
Benoit Eye.
Wait, and I,